BraveWords Records, home for Alcatraz, Bangalore Choir, Crimson Glory, Jack Starr, Voices of Extreme, Paul Diano's Warhorse, The Chris Slade Timeline, Rhett Forrester, Prophets of Addiction, Aska, and Lillian Axe. BraveWords Records, where music lives.
Please welcome to Brave Words, Streaming for Vengeance. Love you, man. Ihsahn from Emperor. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you? It's
Excellent.
been a long time.
Yes, no, it's life is good. Life is it's always a good day when you wake up.
Yeah, that's true. That's a way of seeing things. Yeah.
Now we have the Imperial Wrath tour. Thank you so much for talking about this upcoming tour. So it's always a beautiful thing when Emperor wants to visit North America.
Well, we have been very privileged to have the opportunity to come back, and now finally two shows in Canada. It's been too rare and too long ago, so we're really looking forward to that.
What's how like looking way back to when we're your youth, like how important was it to actually play North America, play in the US and play in Canada? Was that like one of the ultimate dreams or did it matter?
I think for us it was. I mean, we were still so young, like back in '99, like, and still quite inexperienced, if you will. We didn't really do, the extensive touring that many of the other bands did, for different reasons, and I think uh, it was kind of unreal. We didn't have like a super good plan about it or any experience. So I think we were just like pinching ourselves and trying to make the best of it, and just to take in, and I think we're still like that, like to take in that we're do this kind of extreme underground music and can still return to you know all these continents, like we've been several times to Japan, Australia, North America, South America. It's kind of crazy.
Can I just relate a story to you? I just remember in high school, and I was listening to the cassette of the album that I had recorded called Kill 'Em All, and I was the only person in my high school that actually had heard of this band. Fast forward to now, and it went from The Ultimate Secret to one of the greatest bands in rock history. And
Hmm.
I wanted you to relate to that because it was Emperor had a very similar in my head. I'm like, this is my little secret. And now to be able to visit multiple continents, like that must like, how do you process that?
Well, I think you just process it, over time, and I think the most important part is to remind yourself of where you came from, in a sense, and I think I see that also through my kids now that they're kind of starting out in music and trying to build, and getting shows and touring and everything, how kind of hard it is, and then it's so gradual that like the level that we travel with now, the crew, the kind of luxuries of touring that we are now so fortunate to have, you know, it was not always like that, and to just approach that with gratitude and conscious gratitude, and make that. What can I say? An inspiration to like really give it everything, you know?
What do you think about the bands that released that one record and then they were playing stadiums? You know what I mean? Like a Guns N' Roses. I'm sure you prefer the way that you kind of grew up in the scene rather than, my God, we're opening up for Ozzy Osbourne already. And we just released our first record, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a Norwegian band to start with, I think the uh, the kind of breaking or having some kind of breakthrough or success to start with was a very foreign thought. And I've often said it's like uh, if people have this strange kind of um, perspective on it, like how. And I've gotten questions like, how did you experience, the overnight success of In the Ice of the Eclipse? And like, come on, I think my first, there are two kind of moments where I felt like, wow, this is something special in a sense. Like I could never believe that, and that was like when we released Nine Equilibrium. I think we sold like 50,000 records in the first 3 weeks or something, and that was like, wow, and the second one is when we suddenly found ourselves headlining Wacken Open Air in 2006, and like Whitesnake was playing ahead of us.
Right.
Like I remember that so vividly. Having had In the Still of the Night, the music video on VHS,
Yeah.
playing it over and over and over, and suddenly I'm putting on my stage clothes, and then I hear, In the Still of the Night from stage, and I saw um, oh, David Coverdale. When we driven up to stage, I saw him running off stage in his open white shirt, and I was like, "This is insane." But everything else seems like it's just like a slow build, and I think there's so many bands who can relate to that. That for from an outside perspective, it seems like an overnight thing because suddenly you're in everybody's awareness in a sense. But for everybody who was in a band, it feels so slow that you don't really realize. You have to be really focused to see the actual turning points.
Now, we go from Garage Days. I love that Metallica record, by the way. So
Yeah.
now the luxury of like bigger stages, bigger budgets. Was there a point where like you actually were ultimately happy because you could actually what you created could actually be performed live and it would really sound good now, finally. Not that you sounded like shit, but you could actually afford, you know what I mean, the acoustics and everything. Wow, this is sounding the way we want it finally.
Absolutely, and I think and this is also something that has changed over time. But some of the reason that I was not always very happy touring was exactly what you're saying, that equipment wise, and playing this kind of music on bad wedges, with local crew and everything, it's like driving in a snowstorm. you know
Yeah.
the listening environment, like most of your energy goes into trying to navigate, where are the other guys at. It's just like it's more of trying to get through it rather than actually performing the songs as intended. Whereas now in the latest years, and I guess I've kind of pushed with my experience from touring with my own solo band as well. I've kind of pushed through some, what can I say, technological aspects. I'm more kind of a gear nerd and stuff than maybe the rest of the band, and pushed through some stuff. And we've also, over the years, um, kind of built and kind of expanded our crew to this amazing crew and people that we work with, who now we're at this point where the listening environment, the instruments and everything around it is top notch, and we can actually spend. I feel, especially as a vocalist as well, that I can actually put all my energy into kind of expressing and performing the songs, and not spend all that energy trying to navigate. It shouldn't be about that.
Now,
So
you brought up the whole various continents. Be careful what you wish for, I guess. You must be getting offers, Emperor, as you've grown over time from all over the planet. How do you sort through them? How do you decide? When do you decide to go or not to go?
it's basically an agreement between myself and Samas that we do the stuff if both of us wants to do it, we bring it to the rest, and
Right.
see if we can make it happen. But then we're also in that position that we don't want to overdo it. It's as to say, it's easy to be maybe tempted to do this or that, or and we're in a position now where we can get really good offers and everything. So, but we need to. I think we've been more and more conscious about the fact that how fortunate we've been. We are all family men, so we are not in a situation where we have to spend like 250 traveling days a year. We can get by, doing a limited amount of shows and keeping, the privacy part of life, sacred, and just, all of us go out, and we don't wear out each other or the crew or anything. So like yeah, I'm very happy to say that the culture within the whole traveling crew has come to a point where, we're always super happy to see each other, and everybody has a great time on the road because we're not, getting on each other's nerves by, just grinding. We treat it as a privilege and luxury, and I think we've been very conscious. Me and Salmus and also Trym, we've been talking about this, and with Håkon, our manager, like let's keep it. This is good. Let's keep this. I mean, other managements and everything, and when there's bigger corporate stuff involved, is like I've had discussions with other colleagues about like, oh yeah, yeah, if you do this, you can be even bigger, and like, but isn't this good? Does it need to be bigger? Does it need to be more extravagant?
Right.
Yeah.
What's like the internal checklist of the boxes for you to get somewhere and to be ultimately happy? What would some of those things be?
To play live.
Yeah, to play live.
That everybody who's going with us is motivated to do so and prepared. That the technical aspects are in order, and that yeah, it doesn't have to be luxurious in any way, but yeah, really just that it's a decent offer. Everybody can uh, take home something, and that we're in a position and have the energy to put on the full show, to give it our absolute best,
Right.
and for the people who are there, and not, yeah, also, for ourselves and for the people who come to the shows, we need to be on top of our game, so to speak, and not, I think as a band, I think if we overdid it, I think we would, um, it might have what can I say, affected the performance. And that if it becomes routine and too every day, I think that wouldn't be a good thing. It should be supposed to be, fired out. We should be fired up for doing it.
Yeah, sorry, it popped into my head routine because we've all seen those bands live that it just looked like routine and they're in one city and they announce to the audience that they're in another city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't really take long to get there, because you've seen this from both sides, I guess. With
Yeah,
you may be in a different city, but the club looks exactly the same. It's the same people. It's
right.
the same type of backstage. You got there when it was dark. It's dark when you leave. It's um yeah.
So you're not at the point where you actually have to have a big sign right below your feet that says you are in this city.
No, no, no. I haven't needed that as yet. Maybe later, but no. But I mean, this run where we do 12 shows, like that's probably the longest run that we've done since back in the late 90s.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, we've been very fortunate, and I think the experience of doing s small parts and like gradually extending, becoming more comfortable with maybe doing a bit longer runs. It's a long process, and um, yeah, we try to keep it that way.
Now, with Emperor's history literally written in stone forever, really your only creative, like your main creative outlet is what you're doing solo, I presume, and that's consumes your life these days in terms of creativity.
Yeah, music, it's consumes my life in that sense, and it's kind of good when you can get a mix up of playing live shows. And for many years now, I've been kind of doing albums, and the touring season or festival season has been very much back to back. Doing Emperor stuff and doing my solo stuff, and yeah, for me that's been very satisfactory to be able to balance both. I mean, again, it's a matter of perspective of getting to do both. I mean, most people do not have the luxury of having like one career with a band like Emperor, and then to quit that and to still be able to do all these albums and do my own shows and everything, and kind of it's kind of the best of both worlds. And I'm not in a position where I have to you know grind to make it all function as well. So yeah, I've been very, very, very blessed.
Yeah, and like when you step back and kind of look at your life until now, like what happens when you look in the mirror? What goes through your mind?
um in terms of looking backwards, or um what can I say, I'm very much focused on the next creative project, if you will. I've For better or worse, I guess, I think it's a combination of again, from the outside, recognition, some underground semi-fame or success in that matter. It's something that I haven't really been that focused on. Maybe because I've been very fortunate, but I've been when we started Emperor, it was not even an option that this would be successful in the terms of like this being our livelihood.
Right.
And it was never started for that reason. It was like we started out purely on our you know our artistic ambitions. They would like There's no money or fame or anything to be had, quite the contrary. Whatever success that I've been able to experience has been like a random consequence of just doing things very, very dedicated and passionately. As I think is the case with a lot of metal bands in general, because there are easier ways to make a living.
No, no question.
So yeah, and I think this is uh, in my position now that I've been doing this for, yeah, the better part of 35 years. It's from the outside, I think people, you get thrown superlatives your way, and what can I say? It's some kind of you're put into boxes, and I think uh, you have to respect that people view it like that or anything. But personally, so sometimes I wish I could have take it to heart a bit more. But then again, it was never about that for me, and this was something that what can have been pondering a little bit, in later years, as you mentioned, my solo career and everything. And people seem to think it's strange that I started out, in their perspective with Emperor, and then ended up going solo. But when I was thinking back in that sense, I remember my first love of making music, when it was on my own. You know, me, my guitar, my electric organ, and a 4-track tape machine when I was like 11, and just like putting together the puzzle of music, making songs and just like building the arrangements and just like puzzling it together. So in my in my mind, this is how I started, which and was the trajectory for me joining bands. And then I kind of went back to the core of my love of working with music, which was in this bubble on my own, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And I've always found such like humble and modesty with emperor themselves. Like that's I guess that's part of what comes when fame and fortune you don't give a shit about. It's just you're just pleasing yourself.
Yeah, but I also think it's very big, a big part of the culture. Yes, I mean there's a lot of extravagance in the lyrics and the vision and the music. Look at the t-shirt you're wearing. It's like there's no humility there, you
Right.
know. But that is the expression,
Yeah.
you know, and it's an artistic motivation. You know, the other things, you know, like who says what, or yeah, this famous person knows your band and blah blah blah. It's very superficial, and I think people who are drawn to this style of music or metal in general, it was always about the integrity and the realness. It's become maybe a cliche now about like true black metal or true blah blah blah, which has kind of turned on its head in itself. But at the heart of it, this is what we all want, because whether we're conscious or not, when you draw to this style of music, there's just something in you that tells you if it's genuine or not.
Right.
If we were up there, hating to play these songs, and just like doing it for money or whatever, it's people would tell, and it wouldn't be the same experience,
Right.
you know. So you kind of have to keep that in mind, and like and be very focused. And the same thing as in regards to, yeah, why would I do the solo thing? There's no way, of course, I could have the same measure of success as a solo artist when I'm forever doomed to be my own little brother in a sense. But again, with doing Emperor, and like we did it for the right reasons, and when we creatively, came too far apart, we ended it and
Right.
did other stuff because we wanted to maintain, what was driving us, you know.
Well, and really, when you step back, something at the end of the day, it's just like the actual name emperor itself has deeper meaning. When you
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could, at the heart of, all the extravagance is like, I would rather say like, with a name like Emperor and the kind of titles that we've had and everything, it all kind of points to very very large ideals, high hanging ideals in a sense, and some kind of subconscious search for some kind of perfection, like the ultimate um, artistic goal in a sense. And yeah, it's all about not making compromises. That's what kind of divides a lot of metal or rock music from pop music. And these days when you see AI music on the hit lists and everything, that's kind of the the McDonald's mindset of making food, just as in music. Whereas I wouldn't say that the old black metal is probably as refined, but there's some black metal is like cooking on open flame, and other metal music or progressive stuff can be like Michelin restaurant, but it's never about you know necessarily selling in big quantities.
very funny.
I mean, maybe a very stupid food analogy, but there you go.
Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Sure.
When we were sitting together at Heavy Montreal, you told me the story that it was seventh son of a seventh son that taught you how to play the guitar, and I've loved hearing that story. Tell me about your when you met that record and how it changed your life, and like what did that do to you?
Well, I mean, when I first started playing guitar, yeah, I was like 10 or something, so I was hugely into Twisted Sister. and metal in general. And I had, there was Metallica, there was Judas Priest, and some like compilation albums that I had, and Kiss, all of that. But coincidence would have it that I got the Seventh Son record, and October 5th, '88, my dad took me to see the Seventh Son tour,
Wow.
and I was only 13, but I was already like very dedicated. I had longish hair, and my Iron Maiden patches all over my denim jacket, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And very dedicated. I was already playing in bands and stuff, but from the moment when Bruce Dickinson came jumping onto stage, like I am he, at the start of Moonchild, with the intro, like the pyros went off. Like since that moment, I've never had a plan B with my life. Literally, it was like, this is what I'm going to do.
And did you have parental support when you had finally made that decision? You weren't going to be a lawyer or a mechanic or a plumber. I'm going to be doing this. What did your parents say?
I think they saw that, appreciated my dedication to this, and probably also saw very early on that it was not really an option for me to do anything else. I there's like in the Norwegian tradition, I come from a farm, so it was expected of me to inherit a farm as my dad did and my grandfather did. That kind of, since I was the oldest and all that. But it was like, I think even my grandparents gave up pretty early on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and how many of your family members have actually experienced like the wonderness of Emperor Live? You go from like potentially like running a farm for the rest of your life to that's a crazy story right there to doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, I know, but there's a parallel there because running a farm in Norway is like, it's not something that you do for money anymore.
Sure.
So it's really, if you want to have that lifestyle, you know, and the same thing with me. It's a, this is not like a job that where you clock in and out. This is a lifestyle, and you kind of choose to live within that realm. And again, it wasn't like, an either or choice. It was really gradual, and my parents were very supportive of me, playing, and drove me to rehearsals and all that. And I think I think they've both seen Emperor shows and some of that. But um again, locally, we keep a very low profile. We don't like to make a big fuss of these things. So unfortunately, we just moved to an even smaller place than where we lived before, and there's like hardly any people, and it's a good thing.
Well, one of my first questions actually was going to be geography and creation because we're so, like I'm in Northern Ontario, in Ontario, which is very similar to the surroundings. How does that affect the creation? Just your quiet world where it's snowy, dark, and doomy and cold, and has that had a big influence on everything in your life?
Absolutely, I think that is for everyone, who creates. We create out from, the impulses we get in. So even though it's what you're wearing on the shirt is like a super exaggerated version, and that was usually what art is, but for sure. And it's like, I'm not sure like what you now associate with Norwegian black metal. You know, I don't think it could have appeared and become what it was in Jamaica, you know, as well as reggae could not have happened in Telemark. You see what I mean? It's just like, of course, that's now we have the blueprint, so it's easy to say after the fact. But I think we create, whether we like it or not, or even if our influences come from far away, we end up, choosing the colors and the sounds and the palette of what is embedded in us. And I think now I've turned 50, and I think more than ever, I'm very much aware of this sense of being rooted. to how this sense of, and it's been for quite a few years, like since ever I did, if you heard my Arctis
Yes.
album and the Telemark EP and all that, like it's been very, very obvious for me how kind of that sense of belonging in Telemark, and how the surroundings here is such a big part of who we are and what we do.
What do you think about the whole vinyl craze, and what was your first vinyl purchase as a kid?
My first vinyl purchase was when I was 10, and it was Kiss Rock and Roll Over, and I bought it purely on the cover artwork alone.
Wow. Wow. Well, what do you,
But with Seven Son, yeah, I mean it's that still, yeah. Well, you can see traces of it, I guess, with the T-shirt again you're wearing. That icy blue color is still probably, apart from black, my favorite color. So like it's an, and if you listen to the 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 track listing, what kind of songs I put together, I realized this later. There's such a the ebb and flow is like Seven Son. The pace of the songs. The second one is a faster one. Like it ends up with maybe a long epic song. It's like it's not a conscious thing, but again, one of these things that for me, a perfect album like that, like it's like just an embedded blueprint of what an album should be. So,
well, and Bruce told me once that they tried to do Operation Mindcrime, but they failed.
it, oh, I
That's a,
think they
that's,
succeed.
that's the quote Bruce. That's the quote Bruce.
And but
I'm a
but I
big
know
fan of
it.
that album too.
I know it was controversial amongst a lot of Maiden fans,
Yeah,
because you can't have keyboards and metal and all this. For me, that was the entirely the opposite.
right.
That's like, because you had all the epicness. I love the fact that it's conceptually bound together by this storyline, and the keyboards like adds the dynamic layers and the choirs and everything. There's a, that's a huge reason why Emperor sounds like it does, because I wanted to bring in those keyboards.
Now, when you're doing the artistic layout of the Emperor Records or your solo career, like, do you reflect on the albums from the past where, wow, this album cover blew me away? We need to make an album cover that blows people away.
To some extent, but for Emperor's part, Samot has always been the visual guy. He's been much more picky about the details there, and maybe I've taken more of the responsibility in the arrangements and everything, and the detailed in the music production side of thing. But we've kind of very specific roles there. But for some of my album covers, especially the first Ihsahn cover, is like, okay, I want this album to feel and have a sense like Diamantagala's Litanies of Satan.
Okay.
Do you know the cover with her,
Yes.
just this red, so that's like a total rip-off attempt. So I didn't succeed, I think, but for since then, I've had the privilege of like with Nemo Sampler, with everything called No Star of Ash and Ihsahn, and yeah, and more things. It's always been the ritual studies. We also did a lot of the Emperor stuff, the live stuff later. We've had a great collaboration with. So and he always manages to conceptually capture the stuff that I try to conjure up in lyrics and music. So
Have you ever asked for an autograph?
if I've asked for an autograph,
Yes.
um, I think I had the autograph of a Norwegian band called Dum Dum Boys
Okay.
when they played local gig when I was like wee little. But
Okay.
and yeah, I did get Rob Halford to sign a Judas Priest album the first time I met him.
Well, and there was rumors, I think we spoke about it, that a potential, at least talking about music together, or Halford saying that it'd be wonderful to work with Ihsahn at some point in time.
And I tell you what, we've been talking about this since 2001.
Okay.
was the first time he called me. And we, to be honest, we've been talking about this on and off over the years many times, and every time we meet, uh, I've talked at length with Nergal, because he has had a similar dialogue with him, because obviously Rob has a deep passion for all kinds of metal, and for a long time, yeah, for decades, wanted to kind of uh, stick his toes into the more extreme black metal thing. So who knows? Hopefully,
Well,
you know.
it's pretty unique because you were talking about Coverdale. There's a lot of people that we grew up in the late 70s and the 80s that don't like it's too extreme. The Cookie Monster vocals. So to actually find some icon like a Halford that kind of gets what you're doing, that must sink a little deeper.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, he's the god of metal. I mean, I rarely get starstruck, and even you probably met Rob, and he is, the the perfect gentleman. Like he's the kindest. Like every time I've met him, but it's just like it's very hard for me to not get that. The aura of you know of the metal god. That's it's a and that's very very rare for me. But still, if you also consider, like a lot of people are very stuck in their ways. But if you just listen to Judas Priest, if you compare, some of the ballads on Sad Wings of Destiny, and then you put on Painkiller, it's like, and it's the same band. So
Yeah.
obviously, they went from something that was almost Queen-like, in parts, and very progressive, to like Painkiller. I remember when I first saw the Painkiller video, it was like, it just blew me away. Like, is this the same band? And they're like, and the double kick drums and everything. It's just like they're so open to, and the synthesizer stuff they did. It's like obviously both Rob and the rest of the band have been very open-minded to experiment with sound, to you know really utilize the dynamic range of what metal music can do. And that's been just that alone has been huge inspiration for me. That a band like Judas Priest can be all these things.
I,
You know,
I think we're roughly about the same age, give or take a couple of years. So all those videos that you saw first in my head, like are just like, where were you when you saw, just talking out loud, the Can I Play with Madness video, for example? You know what I mean? Or the Painkiller. I could probably sit there and tell you exactly where I was and what year it was when I saw that particular video. And it sounds
oh
like
yeah,
that same kind of,
yeah, but you must remember, I'm from. I mean, I grew up in Norway in the '70s and early '80s, and like it was the national, broadcast station. But at times, I remember when I was a kid and did sleepovers at my grandma's. She would let me stay up late, and on Sunday evening they had a music video show where they would, play. And I saw Twisted Sister, come out. No, with the I Want to Rock video, and Dio, Holy Diver, and stuff like that. Uh, and I vividly record that. But in the still of the night, the White Snake stuff and some of that. That was like I had an uncle who lived in Oslo, and they had like fucking cable TV, so he would tape me some of these shows on like half-hour VHSs and send to me, and that's how I could actually see, because there was nothing like that on. We didn't have MTV or anything until I was like late teens.
right, right.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not dissimilar. In Canada, it was pretty much like we followed. There was a Much Music, but it was the Power Hour. Like we're talking like in the mid to late '80s, right? So
Mm.
before that, you really had to work. Well, so compare. This is a great question. Compare now how easy it is to find anything compared to back then, to how impossible it was to find something, or at least to know someone that could get you. It was almost like a drug.
Yeah, but it's a matter of evaluation. There's so many things that we do not value now, that you know are some not very long ago our grandparents or something would envy. You know
Yeah.
how many humans through human history had the privilege of a hot shower? you know.
No, I hear you.
We take it for granted, and the same thing happens with music. And I love the fact that because I love music, and I'm curious about everything, to find new impulses and new music and all that. But of course, I see it in the market. It's devalued because it's an accessory now. People don't care, like for a very, very small sum. You don't have to invest anything. And people, you see, a lot of young people do not have the privilege as we did. Like you and me, the same. We saved up our allowance to buy that album, and it probably wasn't even there in the store. You had to order it and wait for it, and when it finally arrived, you brought it home like a treasure, and you read all liner notes, and you studied all the lyrics, and you saw if they were like Iron Maiden would write these messages on the inner, brim of, so you treasured it like a piece of art that you invested in. And even if you didn't like the album at first, you would just listen to it over and over and build a relationship because this is what it was about. Now you just swipe and disregard, and it's. I think I rather look at it as I feel very privileged to have grown up in an age where I could treasure music so deeply, and
And I treasured it so much that I would buy the record and I would tape it and then put the album in its own little sleeve, never to be touched again. But I would have this, and I still have all my cassettes. And
yeah,
I found it really funny that a couple of years ago that, oh my God, I'm going to buy all the Emperor cassettes.
yeah. Yeah, yes, yes, he will trim to sign it. Did I say?
I
Oh yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
one.
yeah. I'm there
Oh,
too. Yeah.
remember, it was when Samoth couldn't make the cruise. That's
Ah, yeah, yeah.
maybe
That's
we
true.
can change that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Dude, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you guys live. It really is a special moment to have you play in Canada and Toronto specifically, because I'm about 20 minutes from the downtown core. So thank you for making the effort because I know how much it takes to do it. So I appreciate you
Well,
and everything.
thank you so much for the support this time and all through the years. It's always a pleasure talking to you and when we meet. So uh, I really hope we will see you in Toronto.
Absolutely. Cheers, man. Thank you. Have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.